The unwavering support of the United States for Israel has been a subject of much debate and analysis. While there are historical, religious, and political reasons, today we're going to focus on the political side. If you're curious about the other aspects, feel free to ask in the comments. Let's start with the elections. Have you ever noticed how US presidential candidates always seem to fight over who can be a stronger ally to Israel?
Anybody who's Jewish and loves being Jewish and loves Israel is a fool if they vote for a Democrat.
The US is a democratic nation, but its system is not without flaws. One key weakness is the influence of external and domestic lobbying groups on the political process. This is where Israel comes into play. To secure its interests, Israel established a powerful lobbying group in the US known as AIPAC, American Israel Public Affairs Committee, in 1954. Before exploring more about this lobby and its dominance over US government, let me explain a little bit more about this loophole in American elections, or democratic countries in general. Elections are incredibly expensive, especially in a country like USA, which means candidates need a lot of money to run effective campaigns. This creates an opportunity for not just domestic lobbies, but also foreign governments to influence who gets elected. If a foreign power sees that a particular candidate is in their best interest, they can invest money and resources into ensuring that candidate's success. A prime example of this was in 2016, when Russia interfered in the US presidential election. The Russian government favored Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton and took significant steps to influence the outcome. From hacking to disinformation campaigns, Russia used its resources to tilt the election in Trump's favor, proving that external players can have a massive impact on US democracy. In a similar way, AIPAC uses its power and influence to ensure that US politicians remain loyal to Israel. This influence is so powerful that even criticizing Israel can be risky for American politicians. If a politician speaks out against Israel, it can damage their chances of re-election. This is Thomas Harold Massie, a member of the Republican Party, and has been the United States Representative for Kentucky's 4th Congressional District since 2012. He was in an interview with Tucker Carlson, and this is what he said.
Well, I have Republicans who come to me on the floor and say, I wish I could vote with you today. Yours is the right vote, but I would just take too much flack back home. And I have Republicans who come to me and say, that's wrong what AIPAC is doing to you. Let me talk to my AIPAC person. By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them. So I've had
that's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, "I'll talk to my AIPAC person." And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to, dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
It doesn't benefit anybody. Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
And this is James Earl Carter, the 39th President of the United States. That's what he said about U.S.-Israeli relations.
The fact is that American Jews support Israel, and I understood that. And the fact is that every Jewish prime minister that I have known has enlisted American Jews to bring as much pressure as possible in the political process on American presidents. That's understandable. I don't object to it. Now, a president must not go along with it on occasion. Because let me explain something about what is called the Jewish lobby in this country. In the first place, Jews, understandably in the United States, because of what happened in World War II, because of the Holocaust, are going to put first priority on the survival of Israel. Now, as good Americans as they are, they believe that America's survival and security is directly related to Israel's. In other words, their belief is that being for Israel first means that does not mean you're putting America second, because they think it goes together. An American president, however, has to approach it in a different way, in my opinion. He's got always to think first of what is best for America, and that's true whether it has to do with the Israelis or whether it has to do with the Irish or the Germans or what have you, or the Poles, etc. Usually what is best for America is also best for Israel and vice versa. But on occasions, for example, an American president must make a decision that does not in effect give the Israelis a blank check. And one example of that is a decision that I made. I decided early on in our administration that we were going to seek good relations with Egypt and others of Israel's neighbors. Many of my Israeli friends didn't like that because they wanted a special relationship with Israel and Israel only.
Let me explain to you how AIPAC approaches candidates. First, it's important to understand that AIPAC's strategy isn't just about funding campaigns. It's much more calculated. AIPAC provides what I call a complete package for politicians. It doesn't just throw money at campaigns, it offers comprehensive support that makes it very hard for any politician to refuse their help. Here's how it works. AIPAC helps candidates by boosting their public image, ensuring their election campaigns run smoothly, and even tarnishing the reputations of their opponents if necessary. Essentially, if you're a US politician, standing with AIPAC can make or break your career. Take Jamal Bowman as an example. He rose to prominence in New York, but as soon as he showed support for Palestine, he became a target. His political standing was immediately challenged, showing just how powerful AIPAC's influence can be. It's not just about funding, it's about the ability to control the narrative, influence public perception, and determine who gets to rise and who falls. This is why US presidential candidates, no matter what side they're on, Democrat or Republican, go out of their way to prove their loyalty to Israel. It's not just about foreign policy, it's about securing the backing they need to win elections and stay in office. One of the most visible outcomes of AIPAC's influence is the continuous flow of US military and financial aid to Israel. Every year, billions of dollars are sent to Israel to maintain its military advantage in the region. Even though there's much important problems in the country, but Israel always comes first. This is not just a show of friendship or goodwill. It's the result of years of lobbying by groups like AIPAC to ensure that US policies always favor Israel, regardless of the political party in power. This financial support ensures Israel remains a dominant military force in the Middle East, often at the expense of the US's relationships with other nations in the region. Yet, no matter the conflicts or criticisms, US politicians rarely take a stance that jeopardizes this aid, because doing so could mean losing AIPAC's backing. AIPAC's reach extends beyond financial aid. It also influences US diplomatic stances in international bodies like the United Nations. For example, whenever the UN debates resolutions critical of Israel's actions, whether in Gaza, the West Bank, or elsewhere, the US often steps in to veto those resolutions, even if they're supported by a majority of the international community. In the Israel lobby and US foreign policy, Mearsheimer and Walt argue that the pro-Israel lobby has a strong influence on shaping US Middle East policies. They suggest that when the lobby succeeds, Israel's enemies get weakened or overthrown, Israel gets a free hand with the Palestinians, and the United States does most of the fighting, dying, rebuilding, and paying. This aligns with the script's message about US support for Israel not always being purely strategic but heavily influenced by lobbying efforts. Additionally, they highlight that the lobby works to control debate within American academia and public discourse. This effort often seeks to eliminate criticism of Israel, reinforcing the point that questioning US support for Israel can be met with significant pushback, framing it as unpatriotic or even anti-Semitic. So why is it so hard for US politicians to break free from AIPAC's grip? The answer lies in political survival. As we've discussed, AIPAC provides financial and reputational support to candidates who align with its interests. Any politician who defies AIPAC risks losing not just financial backing, but also the political network that helps keep them in office. For many politicians, opposing AIPAC simply isn't worth the risk. It could end their careers. Even presidents have to walk this tightrope. Once elected, they face enormous pressure to maintain the status quo with Israel. The power of AIPAC and its supporters makes it politically dangerous for any US leader to shift policies in a way that might upset Israel's interests, even when global circumstances might suggest a different approach. This dynamic has a long-lasting effect on how the US is perceived in the Middle East. While the US positions itself as a mediator in conflicts, its consistent support for Israel often leads to distrust among other nations in the region. Countries like Palestine, Iran, and even some Arab nations see US policy as one-sided, which makes it harder for America to act as a neutral broker in peace talks or negotiations. This system of influence ensures that US support for Israel remains unshakable, not because of shared strategic interests alone, but because of the powerful lobbying forces that hold sway over American politics. Tell us, what do you think? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more content. And don't hesitate to ask us anything down below in the comments.